I got started in Rocket League kind of by accident. I was casting an Overwatch tournament for UMG at the time, and they really liked me, and they were like, hey, do you want to try this Rocket League tournament that we're running, which at the time was the UMG Collegiate Clash. And that's where I had met Dazarin, who cast for the RLCS and CRL at the time, and we just vibed. I didn't know a single thing about Rocket League. They just threw me in there, and I thought, oh, car soccer, like how hard could it be? Very difficult at the time, but I made Dazarin laugh enough that we were just like, we became good friends, and then he recommended me to some other stuff. I got into the Rocket League scene, everyone was very nice, and yeah, from just CCA to CRL B stream somehow, and then A stream, and the rest is history, I guess.
My story of getting into Rocket League is a little obscure. My ex-boyfriend played it in high school, and that's kind of how I heard about it, but I honestly didn't like it. I didn't really care for it. He ended up talking me into going to Worlds, and I ended up meeting a ton of people, which was crazy. And then the long story short is that I was a pandemic TikToker because I was very bored. Basically, there were no Rocket League TikTokers that had done content outside clips, and I was making a lot of jokes about being a bronze when I was a bronze, but I think people thought I was lying. And so I kind of went viral because of it, and I grew this massive audience. I got a guest spot to cast for the Women's League in WCB at the time. From there, everything kind of went insane. People were freaked out that I was into casting, and then one thing led into another. I got a message, and I was asked if I wanted to do the collegiate scene, and I just kind of deep dived into this world that I didn't really know about. I actually had visited, I have a picture, but I visited the CRL Worlds on accident because I was at DreamHack last year as a creator. From that year to this year is just wild to see. But yeah, that's kind of how I got thrown in. I make mention to it a lot on the CRL streams, I'm new. but yeah, that's kind of how everything went down.
I didn't make a lot of friends at first, and through I put myself out there. I was trying to cast Rocket League without really knowing the mechanics, and I was saying a lot of the mechanics wrong, so people made fun of me. But it was all a learning process for me. So some of the challenges were just trying to gain respect from people in the community and just working hard and getting to know the right terminology. Yeah, just being taken seriously was a big challenge at first.
Honestly, having to prove myself as a woman in the space has been very difficult. When I joined for the first time as a freestyle judge, when they wanted me to come on a second time, I told Rocket League, I was like, I literally cannot handle what I am reading about myself. I'm gonna go spend some time researching. I talk to players and everybody, and I do the same thing with CRL. I go and I do my time researching to come in knowledgeable and not blank, because at the end of the day, you could bring in a new male caster, and most likely they are not going to get treated with the same amount of judgment coming in. So I feel like I'm constantly in this having to prove myself mode. Rocket League has done such a great job of reassuring me that that's not the case, but it's very hard to get that out of your head.
My favorite memory, at least when it comes to Rocket League, has to be just going to the Collegiate World Championship, CRL World Championship. I got to meet everybody for the first time there, and it was super nerve-wracking because that was, I want to say, my first Rocket League LAN, and I already did have a lot of experience under my belt. You know, I'm not always the closest with some of my colleagues in other games, and then I was coming into a new community and meeting these people for the first time, and everyone was so welcoming and totally fun to hang out with after the event was done, and I couldn't have asked for better colleagues, better times, and I would say the whole event was a great memory, and I'm looking forward to going back this year too.
I think my favorite memory was when I announced that I was joining CRL. It was kind of this big step where everybody actually processed I was taking this seriously. I think a lot of people thought I was doing this casting thing for fun, which honestly at first, yes, and then I realized it was a career path that could be possible, and when I announced that and people kind of realized oh, she's serious, that was a great one. But I think my favorite memory in CRL was when I got to tell all the players and my friends that I moved up to the A stream mid-season on my first season, and everybody was just so happy for me and excited and reassuring that I deserved the spot, and I hope I haven't let anybody down. But yeah, that definitely, I will never forget that day. That was such a great day.
The gaming landscape, I think, has improved a lot. I've been around the scene for a while when it comes to gaming, about like 10 or so years. I started back in Call of Duty and these kind of, manly FPS games. And it was, when you don't have characters in the game that even are women or people of color and stuff like that, like you don't even find an identity in the game. How are you going to find an identity outside of that? And when it comes to gaming, I felt like these last 5 years, there's been a huge push for diversity. Even especially in Rocket League, there's a pushback of like, we want to see women, we want to see people of color, we want to see diversity, because we all have our unique life experiences and our cultures and our perspectives in life that make a broadcast so colorful and so vibrant and just different. Everyone is different, and I love seeing different faces on there.
The changes I've at least seen over the years for women have been pretty massive. I've seen a lot more women on desks. I think that's the biggest one that I can point out off the top of my head. I remember when Gillyweed came out into RLCS for the first time and freaking out and being disappointed when she didn't come back, because it felt like I didn't have this like special connection to somebody I could relate to. I feel like a lot of the guys in the Rocket League community are like, oh, I can relate to Stumpy because I'm tall and from the UK, or I can relate to this person because I like their accent, or they like the same things I like. And like as a woman, you're kind of like, where do I go? Because you're just kind of forced with your options. There wasn't a girl, and like I've seen like Lemon, for example, in Overwatch for so many years has been doing her thing and paving a way. And I feel like in Rocket League, now it's happening in our game. And it's crazy to say that I get to kind of sort of be a part of that process, because again, I vividly remember when Gillyweed was there and then not there, and like losing that excitement. I remember coming off the desk at Worlds last year after I did the Ford segment. I was literally on there for like maybe 30 minutes. I came off that desk swarmed by women that were freaking out that they saw me on there. And they were asking me when I was going to come back on, if I was going to be there later in the day. And I was like having to tell her like that was just like a one-time thing. And I had like a couple girls like tearing up when they saw me come on there. And I was like, this is what's been missing, and a bunch of games have been adding that, and now it's our turn, and it's so exciting that it's happening. So yeah,
most influential woman in my life when it comes to broadcast has to be Proskrin. She's a color caster in League of Legends, an analyst over there, and she always inspired me because she was like herself. She had her own flair, her own look. She was very unique in terms of her appearance, the colorful hair, the short hair, the fact that, LGBTQ plus, and she was just paving the way for so many communities. And she was really outspoken, and I feel like women sometimes were told to just be quiet or just not be so loud, and I can never be her, but it at least inspires me to be that confident, and hopefully that confidence can translate to other women who want to be loud and want to say what they want to say. We're allowed to have opinions too, and I feel like sometimes women are looked down upon for being too loud, and Proskrin always inspired me to just say what you want to say and say it with your chest.
As far as influential women in my life, I'm going to start with my mom. I had a lot of learning disabilities growing up, and it was very difficult for me to keep up with people. I feel like when it came to being creative, I thrived, and I would pass everybody and everything. I was a ballerina for all my life. I did theater and all these things. But before all of that, I could not speak on my own without somebody literally physically holding my hand. My mom did a great job of taking her time with me, getting to know me as I grew up and changed and then could learn to speak for myself. Then that leads me into a woman named Wendy Pratt. And she was my high school theater teacher. And she put me in a play, and I had one line. I think it was 5 or 6 words. I don't know what it was about that, but I somehow ended up winning an award one time for funniest person with those 5 or 6 words. And from there, it was a switch had flipped, and I learned how to talk to people and communicate, and that kind of took that off, and I started doing theater, and all of a sudden I was really, really confident. That led me into my 20s, and I would say, honestly, Sapphire, Heather, she was the person who picked me up when I was very much stumbling when I was going viral for the first time. And she was the person that was constantly telling me, things are going to be okay. Like, this is an actual career. That made me feel a million times more confident in decisions I was making, even like to this day. So yeah, those are definitely my top. And then my honorable mention is always going to go to Gillyweed, because I can't not say it enough. I literally remember when she came out. I remember when she left, and it has never left my brain. The whole casting career I've had, I constantly am like, I hope I can do to others what she did for me. I remember that feeling, and I want to give that to other women and even other men. And so yeah, those are my people.
I think the way people in general could be more inclusive is just treat people with respect. Doesn't matter who's on the other side, and just not judging people so quickly, whether it's, if a girl or whoever is playing on your team, doesn't mean you're gonna have a bad time. That's always like the first barrier to when it comes to gamers. Also, companies in general give those people a chance, people of color, women, marginalized genders. And if you find that you're lacking that community, I know there's a lot of like games out there that have boot camps for marginalized genders and people of color to just build up those skills. So if you feel like you haven't represented or just been open to that community yet, there's ways of building up people and giving them a chance or a platform to learn. Because I think the scariest part about being someone who looks different, sounds different, is not even wanting to try, because the answer is going to be no. I know I got mentored a lot when I first started, and maybe just veterans out there just reaching out or just even saying out loud like, hey, I am open to mentoring someone who wants to try casting, hosting, whatever. I really stand up to people too. If you see harassment, call it out. Because I think also being complacent to it is a way of allowing bad behavior to continue and to tell those people that that's okay when it's not. You don't have to, and don't worry about the white knight comments, because that's the first thing you're going to hear. And it's not about being someone's white knight. It's just about being a community. And being a community means respecting and taking care of each other, no matter who it is on the other side. So we got to call out bad behaviors if we want it to stop. So there's so many different ways of being inclusive, whether just correcting bad behavior to giving resources to people so they can build up the confidence to try something new when they're the only ones that are different or that are, in that position. So there's so many different ways people can be helpful.
Day-to-day things that people can do to promote inclusivity could be as simple as liking tweets and supporting LGBTQIA plus creators, the ones that are confident in being like those forefronters for, repping all of us. Support them on Twitter. Follow them on Instagram, watch their videos, donate to charities, do your research, but donate to charities. And then a day-to-day content creator one. Put on events for us, that's what I've been trying to do, invite the women, and invite the queer players, like invite the trans players to your events, like put everybody in your events. It's free. You don't have to exclude anybody. They're just as good, if not better. And like, I feel like that is definitely one that gets overlooked as far as content goes. So yeah, those are some simple things for the average person to creator that you can do to help support the community.